The village beyond the mist. Malik and his 3 friends, Dika, Sinta, and Gita, had been planning their camping trip to Mount Langat for weeks. It was a spontaneous decision after a long stretch of work and school. Mount Langat, famous for its stunning scenery, also carried a reputation for being shrouded in mystery, but that only made it more appealing to thrill-seekers like them. "We're almost there," Dika said, glancing at the map in Sinta's hands. "About an hour before we reach the campsite," Sinta replied, squinting at the map, uncertainty creeping into her voice. As they ventured further up the trail, a thick mist descended rapidly, enveloping everything in white. The forest around them fell eerily silent, and the only sounds were their footsteps crunching on the damp ground and rustling leaves. "Is this normal?" Gita asked, trying to sound calm, though the tension in her voice was apparent. Sinta bit her lip, looking worried. "This kind of fog is rare, especially this early in the day. Maybe we should stop for a bit." They halted and turned on their flashlights, but no matter how bright the beams, they seemed swallowed by the surrounding whiteness. The light barely pierced the dense fog ahead. "I think we're off track," Malik muttered, feeling a growing sense of unease. "Impossible. I've been following the map," Dika insisted, though the uncertainty in his tone betrayed him. As they continued walking aimlessly, they suddenly heard something, a distant sound of gamelan music. The eerie notes floated through the mist, echoing strangely, making it impossible to determine where it was coming from. "Are there people nearby?" Sinta asked, half hopeful, half anxious. They agreed to follow the sound. As the music grew louder, the fog began to lift slightly. Suddenly, in front of them appeared a small village, completely out of place. Old wooden houses lined a narrow dirt path, lit by the flickering light of torches. A few figures dressed in traditional Javanese clothing wandered slowly between the houses. This is strange. There's no village marked on the map," Dika whispered, eyes wide. They approached one of the houses, and an elderly woman stood in the doorway, smiling warmly. "Welcome, children. Come inside. You must be tired." Without much thought, they accepted the invitation. Inside, the house was warm and cozy, but there was an unsettling atmosphere, a thick scent of incense hanging in the air, and the feeling of being watched. The old woman prepared hot tea and gestured for them to sit. "What brings you to this place?" she asked, her eyes glinting strangely. "We were just trying to camp, but we seem to have gotten lost," Malik replied, trying to sound polite, though he was starting to feel uneasy. The old woman smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "This mountain is full of mysteries, young ones. Many who come here never return." A chill ran down their spines. They exchanged nervous glances. Malik wanted to ask more questions, but before he could, the door creaked open and an old man entered. His face was wrinkled and his body frail, but he said nothing, simply staring at them with empty eyes before turning and leaving again. "I think we should go," Gita whispered, her eyes brimming with fear. Before they could move, the sound of gamelan music started again, louder this time, as if coming from just outside the door. Heavy footsteps followed, like a large group of people approaching. "We need to leave now." Sinta's voice shook with panic. They bolted out of the house without looking back. Outside, the village had changed. The mist had returned, covering most of the street, and the gamelan music grew louder, almost deafening. Shadowy figures moved slowly through the fog surrounding them. They looked like villagers, but something was off. The way they moved, too stiff, too silent. They ran as fast as they could, but the fog and darkness made it impossible to know where they were going. Sinta, running ahead, suddenly stopped with a gasp. In front of her stood a woman in white, her face pale and emotionless. She stood perfectly still, staring straight at them. "Sinta, come on!" Malik shouted, but Sinta seemed frozen in place. As Malik tried to approach her, the woman in white whispered, "You will not leave." Her voice echoed in all their ears, though her lips barely moved. Dika, trembling at the back, started crying. "We're going to die here. This is all wrong." With the last bit of courage, Malik grabbed Cinta's arm and pulled her along. The four of them kept running, their lungs burning, their legs nearly giving out. But when they stopped to catch their breath, they realized they were back in the same village. "This can't be," Geeta murmured, tears streaming down her face. "We're trapped." Around them, the gamelan music grew louder. The shadowy figures were now closer, moving in from all sides, their blank, terrifying faces emerging from the fog. The old woman from the house appeared before them, her once kind face now twisted with malice. "You belong to us now," she whispered. Before they could react, the fog swallowed them whole. Darkness fell, and the music continued to echo, drowning out any hope. The next day, another group of hikers found Malik and his friend's campsite abandoned. No trace of them was ever found, only the thick mist covering Mount Langet, hiding the eerie secret of a ghostly village that never appeared on any map.